Justin, would you like to do it this time?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of TapCaf Transmissions, the only podcast that Disney is trying to shut down. They're trying to silence me.
Don't even do it.
Yeah, I'll play that today. Welcome to TapCaf Transmissions.
If you do that, they'll get us.
The only podcast which will walk back its inflammatory statements. My name is Justin, joined as always by Corey. And I just want to say before we begin, chat, I'm watching you. There are so many places where you can go and be rude and freak out and, just do whatever you want and not care about decorum. Not here. Try to be, let's try to be decent to each other. I've seen so much over the last 24 hours, so much nonsense about a Star Wars TV show. And I'm already exhausted. At the best of times, I've got 3 kids at home. I don't need to.
Doesn't need more of you on the internet.
Yeah. So yeah, keep it nice here. It doesn't mean not critical, but keep it nice. I think that's probably the most the strangest intro to TapCaf ever.
There's absolutely no way that's true.
Yeah, that's also probably true.
Even just when I was trying to think of as many words starting with E to describe you, there were probably a few in there that were more out there. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But
keep the nonsense to Twitter. Yes, that's that's a great call.
Yeah, so today's topic is going to be The Acolyte Episode 3. Is there any Star Wars news other than The Acolyte that's worth getting into right now? I don't think so.
No, you've still been playing quite a bit of Hunters?
Yeah, I've been playing a couple of games every day. I'm trying to make my way up in the ranks. I'm a scorer main now, so
yeah,
I think I've found my place in the world.
Which character is that?
The Rodian.
Okay.
Support character with you shoot your teammates and then they get healed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess there was also some new Outlaws information.
But, there was quite a bit of Outlaws information. Did you watch all the? Do you want to talk about that for a bit before we get into
I didn't watch any of it, which is why I forgot it, even though I'd intended to, because I've been way too busy. So
there was the Ubisoft Forward or Ubisoft Direct, I forget the name of it. That was Sunday, and they posted a brief gameplay video. They sent me 30 minutes of footage, which I've uploaded on the channel. If you guys want to watch that, I'm pretty mixed on it. I think the environments look really good. I think everything Star Warsy looks pretty good, but I'm not sold on the gameplay. It's kind of seems to be what I worried about. In that it's like a Ubisoft game. It seems like it's going to be a lot of busy work. But it's always hard to tell with with these gameplay demos because they're always very linear and they're always played on the easiest settings. So we'll have to see.
Did they give any stipulations on what you could or couldn't upload with it? No, I saw someone that just uploaded the whole thing, no commentary, 4K, which seemed like that's probably outside of the realm of what they'd usually allow with footage they're giving out.
Usually it is, and that was my thought too. So I uploaded it with commentary, and then I emailed them. I was like, what are the stipulations? And they were like, well, the embargo's passed, so we really don't care. So I could have, I guess, just uploaded it with completely raw, which usually they don't like. So
yeah. But okay, so I mean, I'm still looking forward to the game. We'll see what that ends up actually feeling like when you play it, but yeah, Ubisoft has a bit more of a mixed record, and Frontiers of Pandora, I heard mixed things. I started when that game first came out, I heard good things about it, but then I haven't heard after that. It seemed like not just that it petered off, but that I was hearing more and more negative things about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked what I played. I know Zach played quite a bit, and he liked it. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's just I watched. So they showcased 3 missions, and one of them was essentially Jedi Survivor style climbing up the wall, and it's that's not really selling me on your game. That's kind of the busy work you do between the fun sections. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
But that's most of one of the early castles in Mario. just climbing up the wall, and then you go through the
Yeah,
fence.
that's the shitty one where you smack the fence and go on the other side. No one likes that one.
Fair enough.
The other news we did get, and just looking, Star Wars Young Jedi Adventure Season 2. Honestly, my son is 5. He doesn't really even watch that show. I'm sure that some enjoy it, but I'm not really, obviously we're not the target demographic.
Yeah, I haven't seen the first season at all. I thought about like introducing my nephews to it and see how they feel about it, but
So my son, almost every day, so there's like 3 constants in my house. Billy Idol, because my daughter loves Billy Idol. So like every morning I wake up, if they're up before me with like their mom, I hear just like usually like Eyes Without a Face or something just blasting from the TV. And then August, my son, he's been watching a ton of like AMVs, like Clone Wars videos um with there's like one that's the final countdown, that's episode 2. And it's like just the Battle of Geonosis with the final countdown over it. It's not even actually
George Lucas's
edited.
original vision. He
Yeah, his
couldn't get the
original vision.
rights.
And then
Gonna
there's
have to call
one for
John.
the Clone Wars, which is actually like really, it's just like a bunch of different scenes.
Munilist 10, then you got Grievous fighting
It's all it's
Crook.
mostly clone based.
Okay.
So it's either that or he watches like the ones where they put just massive armies against each other. And I don't even know what game it is, but yeah, so the channel's in good hands when I retire, is what I'm saying.
If
You got a
YouTube
little
survives
nerd
until
being,
then.
yeah.
All right. Well, we have an episode to talk about tonight that both of us, I feel like, we're more negative on
Yes.
than the first episodes.
Mhm.
But I mean, my takeaway from the episode was that it's not going to win over anyone who didn't like the show,
Yeah.
and it's like it didn't change my opinion on the show overall. My biggest problem was that it felt redundant, and like a lot of the characterization stuff, like I'm good with characterization and backstory. The problem was a lot of what we got in this episode, seeing the lead up to the fire, was Asha's perspective, which I felt like the first 2 episodes already did a good job getting us. Like I
Mhm.
didn't really learn anything about how she thought about it here.
Yeah, I mean, the questions that we have now are kind of the same, because obviously, like, we don't know what is objectively true about what she saw. Like, it's pretty clear that May's little fucking book she lit on fire probably didn't kill everybody. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, like, that would be, like, really bad planning when it comes to, like,
Fire
the witch
safety.
coven. Like, presumably they have, like, messed with fire before. So there's still the question of, okay, who set the reactor to blow up? Why were they all lying, like, in the middle of the stage just dead? Um, and then the other question is, obviously, the Jedi did something that,
Yeah.
um because we know that, what's his name? Tommen, from
Corbin.
Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Well, he was what's his name in Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
One of the, yeah, but
Yeah, I just got his name wrong. I called him Tormund every time
oh
last
yeah,
week,
yeah,
which was kind of fitting given that he is also a Game of Thrones character. But yeah,
yeah. So like he was ready to kill himself, like immediately, like no pressure. He wakes up, he just instantly kills himself. So obviously he did something, sketchy, and I've got a theory that he got slashed by the Wookiee.
yeah.
Um,
I wasn't sure when May was holding up the lamp.
yeah,
Like, my first thought was like, is that someone's bomb?
I had no idea what that was supposed to be at first.
But like, yeah, there were certain things you could pick out of the episode, like Mother Coral was potentially not on the ground at the end.
Yeah,
The circumstances around their deaths weren't so straightforwardly from the fire. But like, since this was so much of May's perspective, or sorry, not May's, Asha's perspective, like
yeah,
we already kind of knew the stuff that she was fond of the Jedi, thought that May had started the fire, thought that the fire had killed them all, including May. And we'd already gotten from the interactions from the other Jedi, including Torben, the fact that he drank the potion, that there was something else that went on there. Otherwise, May wouldn't be set on this quest. She wouldn't be going
Yeah.
after the Jedi the same way.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like I got any more insight on the reasons Osha felt like there was a bit more of like why Osha felt like the Jedi should be trusted or were something to look up to, because she kind of felt stuck being with May all the time, and that they didn't have any other kids to play with. But
that was like, I think that was probably the only aspect of the episode that I enjoyed. I was really negative on this one. I kind of liked the idea of like, do I become a Jedi or do I stay with my family? That's not a new idea, obviously, but I thought it was kind of interesting, and I thought the presence of the Jedi, where they're like, yeah, they're there to check up on the kids, but like they're also kind of ready to kidnap the kids almost. That was okay, but yeah, I kind of agree that like, and I'm a broken record, I know, but it's just like a proper TV show would not have had this episode, in my opinion, and I just didn't feel like this episode added to anything. Like, I will never in my life want to go back and watch this, and that's feels like a waste when you've only got 8 episodes a season, and one of them is this. Like, there were, and it was funny because I was watching back Andor episode 3 today, and that's actually an episode that's also pretty heavily on flashbacks, and it deals with Andor's him being kind of taken by Marva, while at the same time it also, finishes up that little first arc, and it does so in just such a competent way, I guess.
Yeah. So I want to pull something up from Transhuman Angel here, because it's a counter to some of what I've been saying that I've heard a lot, and I think it misunderstands the point I'm making, or the point that both of us are making.
Sure.
Saying this is a partial reveal. I don't know why fans need everything set up for them all clear and concise in one go. It's called storytelling, but that's not my issue. It's not that we didn't get all the information. My issue is that I felt like we got all of this information in episode 1, and that this was kind of taking what we'd already been given and going like even more hammering that part in, rather than kind of understanding that the audience probably got a lot of the main takeaways from this episode from episode 1 and 2. And so jumping from that in episode 1 and 2 to like retread that ground right now, like all the perspectives we got from Osha, from the Jedi, from May, those were things that we could already glean from the first 2 episodes. And I think a lot of the audience did, but then having this 3rd episode be dedicated to it again, it just kind of feels like you're not trusted to have gotten that perspective already. And if we're going to explore multiple areas, like we're definitely going to explore more from this. Like there's still obviously a lot more to learn from the situation, but I feel like I kind of got this from the situation already from the prior episodes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the opposite of not needing everything laid out for you. Like this to me felt like a bit of a checkmark episode, or a checkbox episode, where they, they've got to make sure we've got their full backstory knocked out of the way in one episode moving forward, so they can establish the mystery and start answering questions. But like, I agree. If they really wanted to make every element of today's episode, certain for fans, I think they could have done that in the first 2 episodes without having to essentially waste our time with this one. Because it's not just, I guess it's not really a waste of time. It's just, I mean, it is in my opinion, but it's also just that it feels like it derails kind of any momentum that the prior 2 episodes had.
The way I was kind of thinking about it, like you could take episode 1, 2, and 3, and you could like splice the elements of this flashback into when they were coming up in episode 1 and 2. And I think that would really highlight like how well the show had already laid out the things that we were going to learn in episode 3. There are some extra bits in there. Like we learn more about what the Coven is doing. We learn more about what their actual background is. But in terms of because the big thing is that this is playing with Osha's perspective, but like so much of that was already communicated by the show. So like when you get past that, then yes, there's the stuff about the Coven and everything, but that ends up being like a lore episode rather than something that furthers the actual, like not even furthers, because then people say, oh, well, you're just calling it filler, but I'm not calling it filler. I'm saying for an episode that's so built around perspective, we already had that one.
Yeah, there's a way to establish backstory and establish lore without having to like exposition dump. Like there were elements that I thought were okay, and I honestly think also that even as much as I dislike the episode, obviously some of the reaction is pretty overblown.
Yeah.
Like there were two main pain points I think that people were dealing with. One which I certainly understand more than the other. Um, the first one I'd say, which I think people are especially overreacting to, is kind of how the witches see the Force as like a thread, which to
Hmm.
me seems very similar to kind of how the Force is always portrayed.
Yeah.
And the
It is.
second, sorry, go ahead.
It's just like a different way to contextualize it, which
Right.
is there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Let's come back to that in just a second. And then the second is the Immaculate Conception. But yeah, so the witches, they're not the first Force sect to exist in Star Wars, nor the first to call the Force by a different name. If you have been, watching TapCaf Transmissions, we've dealt with the Fallen Nazi. Is it the Fallen Nazi with the white current?
Yeah, the Fallen Nazi are the adepts of the white current.
Yep. And like there are other groups. Like there's this sort of in the Clone Wars did this too with night witches and magic, which is kind of just another manifestation of the Force. There's the idea that there's this underlying power in the universe, and people have different names for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And regarding like the threads, and that was one thing that people said changed how the Force worked. Like for me, not really. It's almost identical to how
Yeah.
Yoda describes it in Episode 5, where he says it binds everything, it connects, each rock in the starship and you. Pretty much the
Yeah.
exact same to me.
It's hard to even call it like a contrasting religion with the Jedi, because there are some Force sects that have like a very fundamentally different idea of how the Force works, like the Fallen Nazi and especially the Night Sisters, where like the magic that they're using
Yeah,
is like some impression of the Force, but
yeah,
it is very different in both what it can do and how it looks and all that.
yeah,
Whereas what the Coven is doing here, like the way they are talking about the Force, while they're using different words and they don't seem to have the same conception of like the light and dark side in the same way, or at least they don't see themselves in that spectrum the same way.
yeah,
They are like their version of what they think the Force is a lot more similar to like what the Jedi are talking about, just
yeah,
without the specifics of like Jedi practice. And their main point of contention with the Jedi seem to be like that the word use around like the Jedi see themselves as using the Force rather than like
mhm,
some different relationship with it. And most importantly, especially for the context of the episode, the position of the Coven is that like part of how they're persecuted is that the Jedi believe they shouldn't be using the Force the way they are, or the thread the way they are.
yeah, yeah.
Nothing lore breaking
I mean,
at
even
all.
the Jedi and the Sith even have different views on the Force. With the Coven is sort of more similar to the Jedi in that the Sith see it as something that can be twisted and brought to
Yeah,
bear and controlled, where the Jedi, you know, Yoda says, "My ally is the Force," um, which the witches even take probably a more passive approach than the Jedi, perhaps,
yeah,
where the Force is kind of guiding things, but that's more of like a philosophical difference rather
yeah,
than like it being the Force is objectively different. Like these are just groups with, their own different subjective feelings. It's not revealing some grand objective truth, and that's why I'm so surprised to see everyone saying that uh, it completely changed things. Like I found like the Dathomiri Night Witches changed the Force a lot more than this
yeah.
coven.
It's kind of like if people had heard ahead of time that like A New Hope was going to come out and Han was going to say the Force is a Hoagie religion. It's like, oh, they're making it canon that the Force doesn't exist. It just
Yeah,
feels like that level of
yeah,
like, what the fuck are you even talking about?
yeah, yeah. So I
Like,
don't know that
it's
that
such a
was
minor change in like the imagery of how you're talking about it and the relationships to power that relate to it, and that's really all that was.
yeah. If anything, I was like surprised how closely her verbiage did match Yoda's. with like the connections between things being really the like the way she talks about it is almost in a butterfly effect type of sense where you pull one string and multiple things follow it, which is not quite how Yoda talks about it, but he does really focus on how it's the connection between things and how everything in the universe is
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah. Like the philosophy of what they're talking about is very similar. It's just the imagery of a thread versus a surrounding thing pulling you together.
Yeah.
Which is just metaphor at the end of the day.
hmm Yeah, and that takes us into kind of the more controversial point, I think, because I saw a lot less people concerned about that than the so-called Immaculate Conception of the twins. And this is kind of a difficult one because we're 3 episodes into the season. We don't know the truth about what happened yet. Like, I can't find the energy to be angry about something that we don't even know exactly how it works yet.
Yeah, like I'm kind of wondering because this gets back to some of the perspective stuff as well,
Mhm.
where I think some people are going a bit too far in saying that the episode was Asha's perspective because some of those conversations in particular we don't think she was
She's not
around
done.
for. So maybe there was if that is the case, maybe there's extra context to it.
Yeah.
But there like if it is something that that they have been able to do and then May ends up working for someone related to the Sith, like that
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be like some new power that's being used.
Mhm. Yeah, I also think, like, we're not getting the full story yet. My kind of take when, the birth mother is talking to the queen mother, I don't know their names. She kind of hints that, like, if the Jedi find out what you're doing or what you've done, like, it'll
Yeah.
be bad news. That could just be that, like, if she did directly create life somehow, the Jedi, that would be pretty not cool with them. Or it could be that, the Sith have been involved in this from the very start,
Yeah.
um, which I think is possible. But,
And
like
that would also be a motivating factor for the theories that Coral was responsible for them all getting wiped out.
yeah, yeah.
Because again, if she wasn't on the ground there at the end, if she does know more about what's going on here, and like we don't have any reason to believe the Jedi leave the series knowing this either.
No, exactly. Yeah, like, I don't like the idea if it does turn out that, like, what they were going for is that the twins were Anakin, like, proto Anakin conceived by the Force, I obviously wouldn't like that, um, but I also don't think that's what they're going to do.
No, I'm not sure what direction that'll end up going, but I'm not sure how much we're actually going to hear about that part
Yeah.
in the show. Like, I'm not sure how central that'll be to any of the further information we get. Maybe it'll be a big deal, but it might just be kind of left where it is. Because even with Anakin, like Shmi mentions it, and then something that gets explored a lot in like the Plagueis book, but it's not something that comes up
Yeah.
again in the movies at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So it might just end up coming out in Plagueis too. I don't know.
Yeah. It it's a weird. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, I guess, so far. Um, I probably would have preferred them not to explicitly say that unless they do have like, if they are just going to leave it, I would have preferred they just don't mention it.
Hmm.
Um, but, like, there's also the elements of, okay, why would they train, like, I also think we're bringing too much of the prequel era kind of Jedi approach to things, into, this era. Like, I'm not willing to say that, like, a lot of people are mad that they're training Osha as an older Jedi compared, when for Anakin it was a big deal. I mean, we don't know whether it was always a big deal. Maybe what happens to Osha will play into why they don't train older
Mhm.
Jedi anymore. Um,
But
but
there
like,
also, I think it is there are different circumstances with Osha in that we
yeah,
know she already had some expression of Force talent. Like the
yeah,
Jedi are aware of this.
and her
So
whole family was wiped out.
Yeah, and like Soul as a master is already offering to take her as a Padawan.
That's true.
So there's a lot more of the individual choice that Soul is making here that maybe the Jedi, and like there's already been a lot of comparisons between Soul and Qui-Gon that maybe the Jedi Council doesn't agree with. And we know like there was already indications in the first 2 episodes that like Vernestra was opposed to this, I think. And so this seems like more of his decision.
Yeah.
So like the fact that Anakin was going like with Anakin, they had the option to not teach him anything. He wouldn't have known anything about the Force. But with Osha,
she was already
there
cooking
was
with
yeah.
fires. So.
She
Good point, actually.
Okay, very, very just that,
right.
very insensitive.
Did you realize they were different kids, by the way?
Yeah. I think they're twins.
Yeah. I thought it was they look so similar. I just assumed it was the same actress for both of them.
I was actually able to tell the difference between them, which I was very proud of. It made the episode easier to watch as well. But yeah, like the Jedi in this situation have the option between have this half-trained, emotionally damaged kid running around that might eventually develop these talents on their own and end up in a situation like we know May ends up in, or they bend what may or may not be a rule at this time and pull in a kid who is part of this other Force tradition, has no family, and they might be able to set on a better path. And we know that doesn't end up actually working out for them. So
no.
We'll see what the fallout of that is, because there is going to be a lot more to see around this. That's a big part of the series.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think there's something like? Do you think that the Sith, whoever they were at this point, were involved when the Jedi were on? It's not Brental. It's
Brendok.
Brendok. Yeah. Like, do you think that Sith is involved? Because like May going immediately to murdering her sister was kind of a weird point for me.
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely a reason the Jedi are there, which might just end up being the witches, and whether the witches like I don't think they're gonna say the witches were involved with the Sith right away. And I think the Jedi were probably there because of like having somehow found out about May and Asha. So I don't think the idea is going to be that the Sith were involved in a way, at least that the Jedi were looking for. But maybe if there was some connection with the Sith, then yeah, I think it would have to come from the witch's side rather than the Jedi side here, I think.
Yeah. That's just I'm kind of wondering whether maybe the birth mother was somehow in contact with them, because she's gone apparently at the end. Like there's seems to be something else going on there, and she was giving kind of strange vibes throughout the episode as well.
Yeah, she was it's kind of interesting that the twins referred to like Anastasia as just mother, like as their mom, more so than any of the other ones who are in the position of mother and like actually gave birth to them as well. But I don't know. I kind of liked the way that she was used, where like a lot of the episode was kind of about exploring what Asha wanted to do. And we have like the institution of the Coven and the institution of the Jedi, where
neither
Coral
one
kind of
really seems
represented
the
that.
best interest of the kid in mind.
Yeah. So like Indara and Coral were kind of representing that, where they're kind of hard asses asserting what that institution was or needed. Where for both Soul and Anastasia, they clearly have their own perspectives and they believed in the best of their institution, but they were a lot more willing to kind of hear out Osha. So it was like there was neither side was portrayed as having entirely evil people in it.
Yeah.
But Soul is probably getting taken a little bit for a ride by the rest of these. I don't know.
Yeah, something seems to be going on. Zach does have an interesting point that the Jedi could have altered Osha's memory here, which people in like one movie, Episode 8, didn't seem to understand. Kind of that memories, like what's presented on screen, isn't always the objective fact, and that was a pretty simple one. With like we get 3 different versions of Kylo's situation, so I'm not sure whether they will do that. It's definitely possible though. Like it is obvious we're not getting the full story, because
I think it's more going to go that direction though, of like not that they got modified, but that no one had the full story. More so, rather than being like a retread of episode 8, where it's like there were the omissions were enough to make it incorrect.
Yeah. Well, in episode 8 too, I mean, nobody outright lies because
No,
Kylo
but
wakes up and
yeah,
like he tells her what he sees, and
yeah.
yeah.
Their interpretation was like what the audience was getting in that moment, though, was their interpretation more so than I think here, where like maybe the fact that May seemed like so sociopathic was because like Osh's memory is playing this up. But I don't like we're not necessarily seeing this as like we're looking through Osh's eyes. So I
No,
feel
no,
like
I
that
agree.
wouldn't make as much
Yeah.
sense. And I think that a lot of people are talking about it as if that is what's happening. And that I disagree with, even if it
Yeah, I
is
know.
still fundamentally supposed to be. We're seeing the things Asha would know, but
Yeah, we see scenes where she's not present and information that she would have no way of knowing. Like I'm not even convinced she knows really the true nature of her birth
yeah.
yet. So
Like, do you think that this will kind of play through with Soul as well? Like, are all the Jedi on the same page here in what happens, or like because are they going to be
yeah, I
missing
mean,
some
I'm,
information
I'm
from each other
guessing
as well?
no, just because like for one, the meditative Jedi obviously had some deep regrets about what happened.
Yeah, and
Um,
Kalnaka.
yeah, and Indara was also she kind of realized what was happening right away. Where yeah, Soul seems to be a bit more kind of naive,
Hmm.
or if maybe not naive, but just not fully aware of the situation. Um,
Well, I might be like misremembering what happened, but like it kind of made me think of when Soul was going to talk to Torben,
mhm,
and he almost seemed indignant in that he was finding out things about that. Like he seemed to be making realizations at that point about what happened that night
yeah,
that he didn't have before, which makes me kind of question like, is he out of the loop in that?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. That's one of the more compelling elements to me. Um, it's just I think it's unfortunate that this episode is just like it's just very messy in my opinion. Like not just in how the season is structured with you know, we talked about it this whole flashback episode. But
Hmm.
also I just think generally it's had a lot of the same issues that the last few Disney Plus shows have had when it comes to like it's very inconsistent visually where there are certain scenes like with the I thought like the far out shots of the base and like the planets and stuff looked really cool, but like the interior scenes are always so washed out. Um, and like just the parts of like the escape, for example, feel kind of choppy. So it feels
Hmm.
again like the execution is kind of letting down what could be interesting ideas.
Yeah, like the pacing at the end of the first episode, like the stuff did feel a little jarring in how it was
Yeah.
moving around. And then this is kind of that writ large,
Yeah.
where a lot of the momentum that had kind of been built up in episode 1 and 2 feels like it may have gotten away for all the reasons we talked about at the start.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So what do you anticipate episode 4 being?
I mean, I hope we're back in entirely in modern day,
Yeah.
but probably getting to, or not entirely, but like primarily, I think we're probably getting to Kalnaka, right? Because that's where everyone was going at the end of
Mhm.
episode 2. And maybe that'll involve seeing more of those flashbacks and seeing the
Yeah.
whatever confrontation between Torben and Kalnaka as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other possibility is we get a May flashback now, but I don't think that's likely. Um, yeah, like I kind of want to see we're gonna be halfway through the season, which seems crazy after last week. So at some
Yeah.
point we'll need to actually meet the shark face Sith.
Well,
So I
do you
think we
think
might.
that's next week?
Yeah, I think we might. My guess for next week is we know they're all heading towards the same planet.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he might show up too. I mean, I know it's obvious, but my guess is that he is Khmer.
Hmm.
Um, and like, he knows where they're going. So
Yeah.
I do think it will be him.
Is that scene where they're fighting him and he does look like kind of the shockwave and the lightsaber throw and all that? Was that on Kalnaka's planet or is that a different planet?
It's pretty dark, so it's hard to tell, but it did look like it was in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, and there's like you
But there
can't
were
go
a
to too
bunch
many
of Jedi
forest
with him.
planets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also see him fighting what's her name?
Jackie,
which feels so bad for Jackie. She's like 4'11".
yeah, but Jackie's got an extra lightsaber that a Wookiee's
Yeah.
supposed to use, so it's like the size of her torso as well.
Yeah.
Maybe let's talk. Oh, go for it.
I was just gonna say, do you think this is going to be a series that kills off a lot of people season 1, assuming there is season 2 as well?
I went into it thinking yes, but I mean, aside from the killing off of like the Jedi and May's challenge, like I don't know if like some of the newer ones, like if Yord and Jackie are liable to be killed off.
Yeah.
I don't think May or Asha is going to die.
No.
Maybe like by the end of the show, but I feel like they're both going to remain important characters for however long it goes, and we know they want to make more.
You
than one
mean
season.
Osha is going to come to terms with her trauma and the mental vision of herself that is May is going to...
Don't even fucking go. That's the dumbest.
That theory was not viable for not even one episode.
No, like I've been wrong about predictions.
Yeah.
We've said things that are incorrect. And far be it from me to shoot down other people's theories, but that one is not good.
No. So for what we're referring to is there is a theory, a very poor theory, that May does not actually exist. Like it's like a Fight Club type of situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, she travels vast distances, if that's true, and people have seen both of them in the same place. So
that's usually the big stumbling block for those who are like, "Oh, has anyone seen them in the same place at the same time?"
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, we move on from that one.
Yeah.
But we can't say that anyone's seen Khmer and the Sith at the same place at the same time. Like it sounds like Darth Jar Jar at first, but like when you go back and watch all of his scenes, it works.
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of obvious. Like,
yeah,
so obvious that it's almost going to be a surprise if it is true.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, the dagger was when she attacks him and he completely neutralizes her.
Yeah.
And he's essentially reading the Sith, like the Sith, what's it
Sith
called?
Weekly?
No, the what's their phrase called again? The Sith code.
The KOTOR entry exam.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's pretty much reading it. So yeah, I don't see how they can explain otherwise unless he's some sort of other acolyte, which I guess would be possible.
Well, the other thing with it is like you always talk about like watching Palpatine with Anakin in episode 3, where he's got kind of the Predator vibes almost.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of the same sense as those scenes watching the scene he had with Asha when Asha's like trying to pretend to be May.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just like the way he's almost like sniffing. It's all I can describe it as, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think like his personality kind of works for an apprentice too.
Yeah.
Versus like the master presumably will be. I assume we will meet the master maybe at the end of this season. I don't think they'll leave us completely in the dark like that because I do think they want to connect it to the kind of greater Sith plot. The master you assume would be more stoic, more planning, more
he's gonna have a big chair.
Yeah, in a big chair.
I kind of feel like that's more like season 2 era, but
yeah, I mean, maybe. I think we'll get a peek this season anyway.
Just a cheeky little look at him.
Yeah. I don't know. That's pretty much all I got.
Any other predictions you want to? Is there anyone that you're thinking this person's going to die? since you brought that up.
Kelnaka probably die.
Yeah,
Um,
see it.
my whole thing about the Wookiees is they're so strong and so powerful that like having a Wookiee in your party kind of removes a sense of danger because they can just fight anybody. So I do think they'll kill him, and plus, you know, Jekki having his lightsaber, and
Yeah.
I am still continuing my theory that Kelnaka did attack the other Jedi. I think he probably had some sort of moral quandary to whatever was going on. Whether maybe what's her name again? Carrie Ann Moss
Indara.
Indara. Maybe she like was just like fuck this and wanted to kill everybody. I don't know. I probably not that strict, but
Yeah.
I think like one of the Jedi probably had a pretty not chill idea, and they were maybe split down the middle.
Well,
Or at least
whatever
Kelnaka versus the other two.
whatever the like institutional issues with the Jedi that are being explored, I don't think it's going to be so simple as like one of them decided they wanted to go and essentially commit a genocide on this planet. Like I feel like that goes beyond criticism of the Jedi into almost caricature.
Yeah.
So like we didn't see anything in this episode that was so egregious as to explain why Torben would take the vow for one thing but feel so guilty as to take a bunch of like drink poison. Whereas like the theory you brought up last week, in which Alex was actually talking about today, that like Kalnaka ends up attacking Torben and goes off in hermitage into exile as a mad claw.
Yeah.
Like it seems like that could be fallout from here for sure.
Yeah.
But like I just don't know what the middle ground there is. Like where were they pushed more by Mother Coral? Were they attacked and then something happened? But then how much were they
maybe
able
they
to
just
hide?
want
Why are they
maybe they just
flying in?
decided to try to take the children like without permission. And
Yeah,
then
that could be possible. Like it would explain why there's such an emphasis on Jedi take children. No, we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know what the kind of other option is. But yeah, like I said, it's just whatever it is going to be not chill.
No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it does center on Jedi don't take children, then one of them decided, let's go in and take the kids.
Yeah.
Does that act as like the kind of institutional critique on the Jedi, or is that just like, oh, the institution's fine, it's this one bad apple? Like, what is the actual message they're going for there?
I think we're already supposed to be a little uncomfortable with how the Jedi are acting in episode 3, where they are extremely pushy. You know, it's clear that only one of the children has any sort of interest, but I think it's Endara is like, nope, you'll send both of them to us. Where they're like very much, you know, they're very much imposing their will on this family. And yeah, one of them is interested in joining, but they don't really care about that. They don't really care about which children actually want to go. They you know, and these are older kids too than usual, so they have a bit more capacity to make that choice. So like if they're 4-year-olds, like I think Soul said he was 4 years old when he joined the order. It's like I've got a 4-year-old, like you get him at the right moment, I could probably ship him off with another family.
Yeah.
Especially if he thinks he's gonna get a laser sword and magical powers.
I mean, I'd do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, it's hard to balance where the age is where like the kid has a valid input on that.
Well, that's like that's like when there's like custody cases. It's like when you let the kid is like it's always what's in the best interest of the child. That's like the legal test. It's like when can you start considering the child's input? And pretty young, but it's like when do you start to give that the most weight? Because like if mom is like lets the child eat pizza every day and you know drink wobbly pop and stay up and not go to school, like, yeah, a 6-year-old kid might want to stay with mom, but is that in their best interest? Well, probably not.
No. But I
And
think
so,
like it's
go ahead.
impacted a little bit here where like their choice is either join the one type of
Yeah.
magical cult or join the other institutionally recognized magical cult that has the legal authority to take your kids. Neither
Yeah,
of
it's
those
sort
feel
of
like all
like,
that great.
I guess one thing I'm thinking about too is I wonder if it's kind of the way they see the forest that makes the witches so isolationist, where they talk about how, pulling the thread can impact a lot of things. Um, and, Osha asks May whether she imagines what's outside the planet. She says, not really. Why would I? And maybe that has something to do with like, they don't want to unleash kind of themselves on the galaxy and make, crazy sweeping changes. They'd rather just keep to themselves.
Well, it almost seems like the opposite, where like Anastasia talks about, or one of them talks about like persecution from the Jedi,
Mhm.
and that seems to be where their animosity to the Jedi comes in.
Yeah.
Where it seems like they wanted to be not so disconnected, but then they kind of became insular because the Jedi would come in and tell them no.
Yeah.
But
I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of these, whether it's witches, fallen Nazi. I don't like these sects where like every single person is force sensitive and
Justin
like
hates X.
yeah, highly
Yeah,
force
I mean, it does seem to happen a fair bit, but like we don't know how much they selected for it as
at
well. Because
100%
like
true.
they only have the two kids and everyone else is of a different species. So
Yeah.
it's not like it was a community that existed. It was a community that kind of formed where they probably pulled in all these women who were force sensitive. And then they ended up creating Asha and May.
Yeah, I was like trying to like that old lady. I was like, is she just really old or
I couldn't tell if she was like maybe Klaxoonian or something, but
no?
there were like
Imagine she's not
uh
even CGI, just a really ugly old woman, and you just called her a mutt.
disavow. We disavow.
She's an old mutt.
Okay, now you're being mean.
You're the one that called
But
her a dog.
well,
I didn't see any. I didn't see any muzzle
it
on her.
looks like
Like
a dog.
I let you look pretty old, but I didn't see a muzzle on her.
But anyways, no matter who is or isn't a dog,
Mm.
like there was like I think a Twi'lek, there was Coral who's a Zabrak. I mean maybe Coral even came from the Night Sisters. Who knows?
Yeah, it's possible.
So like I don't think this is the same situation where it's like everyone just ended up being force sensitive. It was very much they
Yeah, that's a
collected
good
their own
point.
force sensitives.
Yeah, it's more.
Which
It's more the ordinary night witches I like less. I suppose.
well, like does that imply that maybe they were going around stealing some kids? How long have they been around? They're all more around the same age though, other than the one really old one. So
Yeah, I don't think anybody gives a shit about that. Like when they were thinking about how the night witches worked, I think George
probably
Lucas is
not.
probably just like, it's all fine, and just that was it.
Yeah.
They're gonna use magic.
Um,
It's gonna be green. Never explain it.
my world when they want to use magic, they just use the magic. Shut the fuck
Like,
up, nerd.
okay, Disney, I'll sell it to you, but don't explain the magic.
I have 3 rules. 1, don't explain the magic. 2, don't explain Yoda species. 3, Chewbacca never wears pants.
Darth
Never.
Talon has to be in here at some point. Yeah.
Oh. It's like poetry. It's green. Is there a picture? Like, is there a class photo of the coven or something where we can see just how? I just googled coven. I don't know why I expected that to give me any fucking results.
That's me. How can I help?
What was that?
My phone decided to understand what I was saying as a request for help, but in some ways, yes, but I don't think the way it was thinking.
Yeah. Call for help. Leo Laporte just shows up.
Don't look at his
Let
phone.
me
Don't look
share
at his
you
phone.
my. Let me show you my gallery here.
He sounds vaguely like George Lucas, apparently.
And looks kind of like George, but well,
Yeah.
not really. They're both just old men.
Old white guy in a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, in California.
All right. Anything else we want to cover? I think we got most of our thoughts out.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. I mean, I didn't like the episode, but I'm happy with the conversation.
That's great. All right.
Yeah.
So next Wednesday, we will be talking about episode 4. Destiny's Way, Justin, next Thursday.
We'll see.
No, we can't.
I will try, but it will be Stanley Cup playoffs still.
Okay, that's fine.
But we'll try. I will try. I'll have beaten Link to the Past by then, so I'll have freed up some time.
Okay. I'm still reading Worm, so I've gotten 5,000 pages under my. I'm not even slightly worried about Destiny's Way. I can knock that out in like 2 hours if I have to at this point. My reading skills have just grown exponentially.
Is it that long? Are you serious?
It's 5,500 words. So it's broken. So I'm reading this web serial. It's about like superpowers and stuff called Worm. And it was
For some reason I searched it and it was a clicked link already for me.
But yeah, I think I brought it up last Thursday too.
Yeah, you did.
So I linked it, but yeah, so it was published in like 30 arcs with different chapters in it, and my friend put it all in an ebook or got an ebook from somewhere, and it's like the equivalent of 4,500 pages, I think.
It says 7,000 pages.
I'm on arc 19 out of 30.
What city is that? The header.
What's that?
What city is that as the header?
I don't like it. Takes place in a fictional city, so I don't think it's real. It kind of looks like 90s.
I'm a pretty good Skyline guy, and I don't recognize that.
Yeah, I think it's probably fake.
Like parts of New York, maybe. I don't know.
Like I reverse image searched it, and it just brings up first Worm, a complete web serial, then University of Waterloo cocktail reception. So I don't think that's Waterloo, Ontario, but it's a fictional city. So
yeah, apparently it is part of New York, I guess. So, look it up. Well, you're yapping. I got to work. Were you there talking? I was working.
Yapping. Quit you yapping. All right, we're gonna quit our yapping for this week. Thank you all for listening. We're not doing a game.
Enjoyed the live stream, and you want to check out 180 other ones of these, you can check out our podcast linked in the description.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.